gentlemen, what is going on? Welcome back to the Mindless Horror Podcast presents Scare Actor Appreciation Month. It's been a great month so far. We have a very special guest with us today, Scare Actor from Carnevil. How about you introduce yourself, good sir?
Alright, my name is Wolf. I've been on Carnevil on and off for the better part of 14 years.
Nice.
Never consecutively. I've never actually managed to do 2 years in a row. I'm very restless, so I go to different places, but this is my 16th year at Haunt.
Awesome. So 16 years. Wow, that's you've earned your stripes then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. Carnevil is such a unique scare zone. We've enjoyed every time we've walked through this season. We've enjoyed walking through, watching everybody have fun with it, the shenanigans and everything. It's such a unique scare zone. When coming into this scare zone, with the character and everything, what is something that you want to try to do different every year? That it's like, okay, there's the standard, of course, clown you can go with, but you got to do something that's different to kind of, shine your character. What is something that goes in your mindset of, okay, what can I do different?
Well, the thing is, our theme is not just like clowns. It's a carnival from around the 1910s, 1920s.
So like an old school, yeah.
Yeah. So when the zone first got rethemed in 2006 from 1950s to the clown themes, there was a show out called Carnevil.
Okay.
And it was basically a circus from turn of the century,
Mm-hmm.
and all the drama and things that happened there, and the color schemes were like browns and reds and stuff like that. So that was a big inspiration for the zone. So even though we don't officially have a backstory, as far as I know,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things we do are supposed to be old school circus. So you can think of all these different roles and jobs that people would have in those in that circus.
Yeah.
Right. So you need people that are carnies, people that are workers. There's all the different acts. Right. So a lot of our clowns just think, what kind of act would I see back in the day? Or they can even look at source material. They can look in a book that has like old circuses, or find advertisements for various acts on Google.
Yeah.
You can find these old circus posters that are like, come see the amazing so and so who does X.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So from there, a lot of clowns have figured out, I can be the person from this act, or I can be this job or whatever. So an example of a clown that is based off of an act would be, like this year we had the dancing bear.
Yeah.
So that's an old carnival staple, is having the trained bear that balances on the ball, wears the little dress and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then my character is based off of a carnival job. So my guy is called the cannoneer. He's the guy that is in charge of pyrotechnics. He lights the cannon for the human cannonball. So that's why I had those blasting goggles and the TNT stick,
Yeah.
and the torch.
Yeah.
So that's what I did when I decided I was going to make a custom character for Carnevil. That's what I did. I was looking at all the different jobs, and then other characters that I've designed for other people are, I designed one that's going to be used next year, and that's called the organ grinder. So he's the guy that plays the little barrel organ, or the street organ, for all of the monkeys to dance to.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that. I designed a human cannonball for a friend to try to audition next year.
Wow.
And
That's
I've got
cool.
the concept art all ready for all those characters.
Oh, that's
so
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you've not done Carnival back to back. So what are some of your other experiences?
Okay. So I'm one of the few people that has actually voluntarily gone back into mazes.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
When people get sent to mazes for whatever reason, it's called getting mazed, and most people really don't like it.
Yeah,
But the truth is that mazes are actually extremely fun,
definitely.
and it's a completely different experience. So after being on streets for a few years, I always end up going, oh man, I'd like to go back into a maze. And then after being in mazes for a few years, I'm like, oh, I'd like to go back on the streets.
Yeah.
So I've been going back and forth. I've never actually been mazed or sent back to mazes. And people always act like that's some kind of a punishment, but it's really not. There's, mazes are super important, and some people just get put back into mazes because they decide we need this person to bring energy to this maze.
Definitely.
Yeah.
A good example of monsters that have gone back to mazes on purpose would be Boots and Boogie. So they were like, they wanted to prove to everybody that, there's nothing wrong with mazes. That it's just, it's vital, it's different, and it can be just as fun as streets.
Yeah.
And I can say that in some aspects, one's more fun than the other, and then the other, they both have their pros and cons.
Definitely, because that's a lot of thing we've been talking about with the monsters and everything too. Is a lot of people that start off at Haunt usually start in mazes, and that's how they try to kind of build that per se experience, and then take it out to the streets, and then when they go out to the streets, it's a whole new thing because it's more freedom and everything. But I've heard a lot of people that say like, they don't diss mazes as well, because mazes have their own fun as well. There's different things each year that they theme around, and it's fun to play with that theme, and it's fun to kind of just get to know everybody inside the maze. That way you guys can all play together. If there's like a big scene, like for example in Dark Ride, that ending scene, it's just from what I've heard, it's just a big
Clown hell.
Yeah, it's just a big like playground for everyone.
Yes.
And it looks like it's a ton of fun. Just working there, it looks like it'd be a ton of fun to just have fun with that all night.
It's actually where I was for the last 2 years before this year.
Oh, okay.
So that was the first time I ever did anything 2 times in a row.
Oh, nice.
Was I did Dark Ride twice. So I was in Clown Hell both years. That's how fun that area is.
Yeah.
So if you went through last year and you got shot in the face with a ball of fog, I had a little airzuka that I would fill up with fog, and I would
That's
shoot people with it.
hilarious.
So I was hoping to bring that out onto Carnevil, but for logistics, they didn't want to bring a what I call the trash cannon.
Yeah.
It's a big, gigantic airzuka, but made out of a trash can. They didn't want that out there this year for various reasons. So I pivoted and I just started using the TNT stick with the torch.
One of the funny interactions we had with you was the torch is you go up and just kind of show us it, and then we kind of look at it like, what is this? And then a good scare tactic was like you had us distracted on one thing, and then people are gonna walk by, and as you're distracting us with something, it'd be a good scare tactic to get someone else, because they don't expect you to kind of turn to them because you're talking to us.
Yes.
And I think that's such an amazing scare tactic, especially with the scare zone like this. We were talking before we went on the air, compared to other scare zones, this one's very open. This one's very brightly lit. And so it's a little bit of a challenge to kind of come up with different scares with a scare zone such like this one, but it also arises a kind of fun challenge to kind of like, how can I push myself every night to get different scares?
Yes. So because the zone is so open and well lit, the tactics that you use have to be very strategic with the way that you scare people, and the tactics you use change dramatically depending on how crowded it is. So when there's less people, they can see you from even further away. So you have to do things like what I did with you. That's called misdirection.
Yeah.
So you pretend like you're focusing on one person, you attack another person. Whereas when it's really thick, we're using what's called shielding, where you use moving bodies to block the line of sight between people, and that way you can jump out at people while not hiding behind anything solid. You're actually just moving through a crowd and then attacking people from another that are walking in a different direction and stuff like that. So that's one way that you can suddenly appear. But the misdirection, that's a huge one for the empty nights.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen a lot of the shielding as well, because there'd be nights where it'd be packed and you just see kind of them creepily behind them, running, and then out of nowhere they just jump out, which I think is another great scare tactic as well.
Yeah,
because it's
I would
gotten me a
say
couple times.
I would say if you're gonna be on Carnevil, that's like your bread and butter.
Right there.
You gotta learn all of the, the unusual scare tactics that go with Carnevil.
Definitely.
Because you can't, if you're on, I've been on Ghost Town too. So if you're on Ghost Town, you can hide in patches of fog. You can hide in shadows. You can hide behind more objects because the walkways are tighter.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But on Carnevil, you have people that come from Ghost Town to Carnevil.
Yeah.
Or any of the dark zones to Carnevil. Those people usually struggle for a while because they have to adjust. One of our bigwigs, one of the leads of the entire event, was in our zone for a night because the managers get to come in and scare for a night.
I actually saw a couple of them because we were sitting in Ghost Town, and then one night there was some characters we never saw the entire event.
Although there's another thing that you might have seen too. So we also have a special thing for people who are famous, or for people that have large channels on YouTube or things like that, influencers. We can let them come in for a night, and we'll give them makeup and stuff like that, and we'll shoot a video. They'll shoot a video, and it's a PR opportunity. So they get to make a cool video, using our event. And then we get free publicity from them coming in.
Definitely.
And it's actually a really fun thing. So if someday your channel grows to be really, really large, you might be able to
that's something I've
utilize.
always wanted to do too, because I've seen it. I've seen it through various events that a lot of people do that. I've seen it at Knott's. I've seen it at Queen Mary at one point, and then Hornites is famous for doing that as well. That's something that if the opportunity ever arose, I would not turn that down for 1 second, because that just sounds like it's a ton of fun. So let's talk a little bit about guest interaction. So of course, Carnevil is one of the biggest guest interaction scare zones out there. I mean, all night you see the clowns having fun with the guest, and then going for the scare. What's been some of your favorite guest interactions this season?
Oh man, I think my favorite sort of interactions this year was we have these planters all around, and they have relatively low fences around them, or they're just in a planter where people can sit down and stuff like that. So there was a lot of scaring people and them falling into the planters. So that was one of those things where we would come backstage and be like, "Yep, got someone into the planter. Like I got someone into the flowers. Got someone into this." And of course, we're not supposed to scare people with the intent of getting them in there, and we don't.
Yeah.
But if you scare somebody and they just happen to go in there, that's like an achievement.
Oh yeah.
Right. So the flowers, if you saw those planters on the midway, the big circular ones, each one has a palm tree, and then there was flowers around there, and then there was pumpkins and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Those flowers were just hammered. They were just getting flattened left and right. So every single day you'd come in, you'd see more flowers are just trampled on, stomped on. I had somebody who I scared them, and they just jumped into it and were walking around all these flowers, and I would always scream like, "Look what you've done to my marigolds!" Like things like that. "Look what you've done to my azaleas!" Like that was one of my favorite lines to yell at people when they would fall in. But people would be sitting there, and you could scare them, and they would just fall backwards in there like scuba divers going into the ocean. How they go back first, so they just go like that, and then of course all the flowers are just flattened. So I mean, I'm sure our gardening department would come in to check all of the plants every day, and they would just be like, "What is happening to all of these marigolds? They're all of them are just crushed. They're sideways. They get smashed into the dirt, like leaving little imprints behind." That was definitely a highlight, is when I would scare people into that.
Definitely. Yeah. No, because I had heard stories of that happening. I never got to see it personally, but I'm hoping next season when I go back, I get to finally spend more time over there and just check, to hopefully see that one night. Because I had heard tons of stories of that, because I guess every zone kind of has their achievement, if you will say.
Here's one thing too, is that you know where the fountain is?
Yes.
So that fountain has been, in recent years, they cover it up. They put decorations on it and stuff. But back in the day, you could scare people and they could fall into the fountain, and that is like a grand achievement.
Oh.
So you get that, you are definitely top dog. But okay, again, if you scare people with the intent of them falling in there, people would be like, that's cheating.
Yeah.
Right? It's cheating, A, and B, that's definitely not allowed, because we don't want to get our guests wet or unhappy or uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But if by chance you scared them so bad that they just ran and weren't looking where they were going and fell in there, it was like you were a monster god.
The god, yeah,
exactly.
The gods are looking down, smiling because of the achievements.
Exactly. But those
awesome.
Those are covered up now. I don't know if we covered them specifically to protect guests from falling in, or if it was just such a nice place to put decorations. It could be either one, but my guess is just it was a good place to put decorations.
Yeah, because they utilize the same thing for Christmas too. Is they'll empty it and then put decorations on that as well.
Yeah.
My question here is: a lot of people are terrified of clowns or anything in the image of clowns. Do you have any like favorite scares of like dealing with those kind of people?
Yes. When you get somebody who has the phobia of clowns, or they have a phobia of your particular monster, there's like normal screams like, ah, oh my god, ah, but you have these ones, we call them primal screams. When that person is literally, they see you and they're instantly at their limit.
Oof.
They will scream in such a way that all of the air goes out of their lungs. They their body parts, they just go like this. They crumple up and they shrink down.
That's hilarious.
And they'll just there's absolutely no reservation in their scream. Like they're not going to scream. They don't care if they sound ridiculous or if they sound super scared or weak. It's literally the most honest and full scream that they can give, and it won't stop. They'll do it, and then they'll get more air into their lungs, and then they'll just keep going. So some of those people, you'd get them, and they would be crumpled up into a ball, and they'd be screaming into the ground. But it was the most. They would sound as though they were being like currently stabbed. Like,
oh my god!
Think of the noise somebody would make when they're experiencing excruciating pain.
Yeah.
That's the kind of scream. That's what the primal scream is like, and you only get those a few times a year.
Yeah.
But when you'd get that, it was just so good, and you knew they're at their limit. And in recent years, Knott's has been more insistent that when people reach their limit, we take off, right? But you just want to stay and hear that scream more and more and more.
That's fuel right there, man.
Exactly. It gives you so much energy. But you really, when you hear that, you should just literally go, okay, I've won. I've got to go. But it's very hard to resist that.
I've seen that a lot. I think we've seen it once in Ghost Town. There was this girl who was just. I looked over at him and I'm like, is that a real scream? Turns out she was terrified, and it was like the primal scream. But yeah, that's hilarious, man. When you get people on the floor like that, they're terrified. I think that's hilarious.
How do you keep your composure? Because I feel like I would just die laughing.
It's part of the act of becoming a monster is just your attitude changes. You're letting out this little evil part of yourself.
Definitely.
Like I said before we turn on the camera, we're not scare actors. We're monsters. Scare actors are pretending to be monsters. Monsters are just being themselves.
Yeah.
At least a dark part of themselves.
Yeah.
So you're in this different mental space, and when you first start, you might react certain ways. You might laugh or whatever, but I don't know, because you don't always have to maintain composure too.
Yeah.
If you actually do find it funny and you feel like laughing, that's the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah.
That's literally your inner monster is saying, this is hilarious, I'm going to laugh, and you just let it out.
Definitely.
But if you see somebody doing something that you would find funny and that person is not laughing, it's just because they're in the state of mind that they're still attacking.
Definitely.
They're still hunting a human being. So they're very stone-faced, but they're inside, they're really enjoying it.
Another question that we've been asking a lot of the monsters too is Now, this is probably a big question that a lot of people just would like to know, because it is something that you guys are walking around all night.
Mm-hmm.
Do you keep track of like your steps and calories all night?
No.
No.
You kind of lose a sense of your own discomfort when you're a monster. So when you're scaring people, you might be running into things or jumping off of things or bending in weird ways, and you actually don't necessarily feel the pain while you're doing that.
With all the adrenaline and stuff. Yeah.
So I mean, if people want to keep track of their steps with like a Fitbit or something like that, you could. But I mean, the real indication that you've been walking around is at the end of the night, when you're done scaring people, you suddenly realize how painful your feet are.
It finally comes out. You're
Yes.
empty.
We have a concept we call haunt bruises.
Yeah.
Right? So you will, at the end of the night or days later, you'll be taking a shower or something, and then you'll just see this gnarly brown and purple and green mixed color bruise. It's just the worst bruise you've ever seen in your life, and you just look, how did I get that?
Yeah.
Right? And if you spend enough time thinking, you might be able to figure out exactly when you got it.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, you just are like, I don't remember what I did to get this bruise.
Yeah.
You know, I remember one time I was in the shower and I saw on my shins I had 2 bruises right here in identical spots, and I was like, where did that even come from? And with a lot of thought and searching my memory, I remembered I was actually jumping onto these handrails that had a secondary handrail halfway up.
Oh.
So I was jumping on the second one, and my shins were going up against the top rail, and that was keeping me from going over. But I was doing that, and in doing that, I had got those bruises.
Wow. Oh, wow.
But yeah, we call them haunt bruises or mystery bruises, but you get them. So as far as keeping track of our own body during the night, we kind of forget our body even exists.
Definitely.
So yeah, we're not gonna
know
know how many steps we take or exactly how far we go.
Yeah.
You know, you're just not in this mental space where you're thinking about your own body.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking only about the hunt.
Yeah.
You're only thinking about, chasing down people and chasing after those screams.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that, that's all that matters.
Definitely. So preparing for a scare zone like Carnevil, I mean, you got to get into that mindset before. Is there anything that you do to kind of prepare yourself for that every night? Like listen to music, kind of just sit around?
That depends on the person. So I can tell you that part of getting into the mindset is when you start putting on your costume.
Mm-hmm.
When you put on the costume, when you put on the mask and all that stuff, sometimes that's all you need. In fact, sometimes that's necessary. Some people really can't scare at all if they don't have their costume on.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually one of the hard parts of we have this thing called scare school where we scare without any of our costume pieces on.
Yeah.
Against half of our own maze or zone, and that's just a practice thing. It's kind of like that old proverb where you learn to talk with rocks in your mouth to get over a speech impediment. You try a harder version of it just to get yourself, at the proper skill. But some people, they listen to music, so backstage when they're putting on makeup, they'll have their earbuds in. They'll be listening to whatever song gets them pumped up. Some people, the act of putting on makeup is very, I don't want to say spiritual, but that's what gets them in the state of mind.
Definitely.
So my friend Squid, when I see him putting on his makeup and he's sitting in front of his mirror and he's putting everything on, you can start to see the change as he's looking at himself in the mirror.
Yeah.
For me, putting on the makeup is more of a chore, so I don't really feel like I get into it like that. I know one thing for Carnevil is we have a big break room, so we'll have a Bluetooth speaker set up, and people will play various songs.
Nice.
And we'll get into it that way. And we don't listen to like scary songs or whatever. We listen to a lot of like dank songs. That's what gets clowns in the mood, is listening to like dank music.
Yeah.
Right. So we would just be hearing, various rap, R&B, dance music, not always pop music, but I mean, you know, sometimes it's top 40s, and sometimes people will play something that's like an old classic, and then all of a sudden the entire break room, everybody's cheering and they're getting pumped up. So like, I don't know, we were listening to music, and then somebody put on some Eminem song.
Okay.
That it's like from the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just one of his classics, and everybody's like, yeah, and they're getting pumped up that way. So it really just depends on the person.
Definitely.
I think my getting pumped up has to do with after I get my costume on and I'm fully in costume, I go out onto the street early before there are any guests there,
Mm-hmm.
and I listen to the music that's in the zone.
Yeah.
And then I'll start moving around and doing weird things. So a lot of employees will walk by, you know, going to their various rides or venues, and they'll see me, and I'll just be like, I will like honk my horn with the music, like wah, 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 wah,
Yeah.
wah. Like I do weird zany stuff, and that's what gets me in the mood. But
No, yeah, because
for everybody,
everyone
it's different.
everyone has their own rituals with how they like to get started with the night and how they get into character. And I've always found that like an interesting thing because, like I said, different people do different things. Like some people will just sit there and not talk to anyone, and that just gets them in their zone.
Sometimes you can, in the backstage area, you'll see one or more people, you know, doing like a chant.
Mm-hmm.
They'll start screaming or going, oh, or
Yeah.
like stepping side to side or side, you know, just shaking their body, doing weird things.
Definitely.
Some people, it's stretching. Like you'll go out
Yeah.
onto the street, and some people will be in costume and character, and they'll be on the ground, and they'll be doing all of their stretching or whatever. They might roll around a little bit, do a somersault. You know,
Definitely.
at least the clowns do.
Yeah.
I never really saw any of that with what Ghost Town. Although we walked by the Ghost Town group of people
Yeah.
on our way to the zone, and I used to see them in a big group doing like group stretches
Mhm.
and group chanting or whatever, and they were doing it like with a mission.
Yeah.
Like they were all planning to do this. They were doing it organized. But all the clowns were all different, so we all did weird things in weird ways.
I mean, that's always. I think that's what really is like. It's a fun thing though, because like you get to get with your coworkers, have that like little bit of fun, and then go out there and have more fun. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like that pre-fun that you guys can have, depending on how you guys.
There's also the zone/maze chant.
Okay.
So before the night starts, your lead will have you all in a big group, and will be like, they'll say something, and then everybody chants something right after. When it's kind of like the go team go kind of thing.
Yeah.
And every single maze has its own thing that they say.
That's so cool.
So ours was, you know, the lead would say, "Who are we?" And then we'd go, "Boardwalk, boardwalk, boardwalk." You know, for back in the day in Gunslinger's Grave, they would say, "Gunslinger, what? Gunslinger, what? Gunslinger, ow!" Because that was
That's
like we had
awesome.
the werewolves that year.
Yeah,
So they're all different stuff. I think Ghost Town, it's still suck less. You go suck less. You know, that's like their catchphrase.
That's so hilarious.
But every now and then we would go suck more, but not we didn't chant as a group, but we'd be like suck more.
That's really funny.
If I was lead for Carnevil, I think I would change our chant to "Let's get weird," because I think that's really what clowns are supposed to be doing, is getting
getting
very
weird.
weird. So I'd just be like, "Let's get weird," you know? Yeah.
That's hilarious. How was your character evolved this season, like from the beginning of the season till the end of the season?
So let's see. I mean, there were tactics that I was using at the beginning of the season that I was trying them out because I was using props that I'd never used before.
Definitely.
So I would say the evolution in my character is mostly just the way he walked and the way he did scares. So, you know, at the very beginning, I had my TNT stick, and I would tell people to catch, and then I'd pretend to throw it, and of course it's full of stuff, so it would go like that. It'd make the noise. I was doing that for a while, and it wasn't getting as good a reaction as I wanted, and it was using a lot of energy.
Yeah.
I was getting tired, so I started using my horn. and then I would, honk it at people. And then I figured, because it was a bike horn, it had that little ring on the bottom, I figured I could hold it like it was like a gun.
Oh,
so then
okay.
I started doing things like going up to people and yelling at them and like telling like, smile, smile. If you don't smile, I swear I'll do it. And they're like, do what? And I'm like, I'd honk the horn and they'd be like, oh. I'm like, I told you I'd do it. I was doing a lot of lunging at the very beginning, but then like my knees started hurting, so I started changing the way that I did stuff.
Yeah.
To a lot of the evolution of the character is mostly adapting to failed tactics or body pain.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty much usually what shapes my character is what hurts today and how can I avoid hurting it more.
Exactly. Because obviously, as a character, there's a lot of trial and error going around. Like,
yes.
Something that you got to go out and try, and then you're like, okay, that didn't work. Maybe I can go out and try something new. Is there something that's been a staple to either this year or characters that you've done in the past where you've done that, you went out and it was just trial and error? It was just something like, yeah, this works. Maybe I'm going to keep doing this, or this didn't work too well. Maybe I'll hang it up and maybe I could try it maybe for a different crowd, a different year.
Something new that I tried. I can't really think of it. I mean, aside from what I just said about, throwing the TNT stick, and that just wasn't getting the reactions I wanted.
A good example of, that was a good example of the, okay, it didn't work, maybe I'll try something new tomorrow. Or, so what about, there's a lot of other great talent out there, great monsters out there that go out there every night, and just like you put yourself, they put 110% every night just to get those amazing scares. Was there anyone out there that you really liked kind of interacting with as far as all the monsters go? Like, did you have like any of the other monsters that you knew that you guys would always just throw on like a funny gimmick and stuff?
I've always been kind of a loner type monster, and I'll try to interact with lots of different monsters, but I don't always get the kind of interaction back that I want. So I kind of bounce off people, different things, and it doesn't always go the way that I want. And that's one of the reasons why we have like duos.
Definitely.
Right? So some people, they just really work well together. Some people don't work well together at all, and that's always been one of my problems is I've never really had a scare partner, so I've always been like, hey, who's going to be my scare partner this year, and then it just never works out. But I would say my favorite person to bounce interactions off of is probably Squid, or also known as Pain. He had a little conical hat on like this, and he had like a mask that was just like, and he would go, he was always really fun to play with and mess around with.
Definitely.
And yeah, very, very fun guy. But I mean, I learned what I could do and couldn't do with each character. I tried to bounce a lot of stuff off the twins, but the twins are more of a contained unit all by themselves. So they don't need anybody else to jump in and add more to their act. Their act is already complete as it is.
Yeah. So
I didn't always get a lot of good bounce back from them. But who else? Who else did I bounce off of a lot? There was a couple of times where something brilliant would happen that I wasn't really planning.
Definitely.
Or whatever. I liked one of the stilt guys. His name is Spider.
Yeah.
And he was walking along. There's some people around, and just something struck me, and I just stood up on this planter, right, on the planter, and I looked at him. I was all like, now I'm the tall one. And I was just like pointing down at him, whatever, and he just looked at me like, and then with his stilts stood up on the planter too.
Oh my god.
And I was just like, like this, and then he just looked down at me like what are you gonna do now?
Yeah.
And then I was just like, and then I jumped down and like ran off or whatever. Or no, he looked down at me like all intimidating, and then he stepped backwards off of it. Like, if he had slipped, man, he'd be like dead.
Yeah.
He was up so high, and he would wear his stilts at max length, so his feet were like, you know, all the way up here.
Oh my god.
So it was just ridiculous how tall he was, and then he just looked down at me like, you ain't got nothing, and then stepped back, and the crowd just thought it was the most hilarious thing ever, and I was like, dude, this is the perfect thing that I wanted to get out of an interaction.
Yeah.
Right? So it was just like, he always had really, really fun stuff to do, but again, his character is more of a solo type character too.
Yeah.
So the perfect interaction for him was to show my character that he was better than my character.
Definitely.
So it's kind of weird. You have to try with everybody, but yeah. I mean, Spider and Squid, those guys were hilarious.
I think that Stillwalker thing is hilarious. I wish I would have been there to see that, because just the fact that you have this, you know, you're trying to play this game of, oh, I'm taller than you, and then he just stands up on the planet, and you just look up like, okay.
Oh yeah, I mean, have you ever seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yeah.
You know when he's talking smack to that dude that has all the legs. He was played by John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Like Hamakavula or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what he, Arthur's character. You know, Arthur's looking at him like, oh, you know, da 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 da, and the guy he scoots over, looks at him, and then his legs extend him up, and he just looks down at him, and Arthur's just like, That was basically what happened.
Yeah.
You know, so
That's
that was,
hilarious.
I loved that interaction. It came out really good.
What inspired you to want to become or try out to become a monster?
Oh man, I had heard about Scary Farm and thought that it was like a really cool idea. I just thought this sounds so much fun, but I had never visited.
Definitely.
Right, in my entire life. And then when I was 19, I went in with a group of friends on opening night, and I was like, holy moly, this is like way better than I ever thought it could possibly be. And I just saw these monsters working, and I thought, that looks like so much fun. And I saw the sliders, and I was like, that looks amazing. And I just was like, oh, I want to be a monster so bad.
Yeah.
And I remember I just was talking about it over and over again about how much I want to be a monster. One of my friends was just like, why don't you just go apply? And I was all like, what, for next year? I mean, I'd have to wait a whole year. I mean, I'll definitely do that next year. And he's like, no, go apply now. I'm sure they probably need people. I'm like, you're kidding. He's like, well, yeah, go ahead. And so I went there, and they literally, it was the second weekend of 2004 season. And then they brought me in like that. I interviewed, got hired, and because they needed people for Blackout.
Yeah.
There's like semi-security positions that are inside mazes.
Yeah.
So I instantly got in, and then I was like, this is so cool, and I got to go there every night. I made friends with monsters, and then partway through the season, I was like, all right, I'm kind of over being semi-security. I want to be an actual monster. You know, and I told my lead that I wanted to be a monster. But partway through, a position opened up in Log Ride. So I moved over from my maze to Log Ride as a monster, and I got to do that. It wasn't that fun. The mountain positions are always less fun than the others, but I still got to do it.
Yeah.
But that was basically how it all started out. I visited opening night one year, and then I immediately tried to apply a few days later.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I mean, it's always good to just kind of start somewhere. That way you get that experience going in, and then you can just what we like to say on the channel, you get to kind of take that and go everywhere and Frankenstein your own kind of scare tactics, which I think is really cool. For those who want to become scare actors, do you have any advice for people who want to come into this world?
Well, if you want to be a monster,
yeah.
If you want to be a monster, then you just gotta apply as soon as the position opens up. Make sure that you get in early, get an interview, be ready to show a custom character. So they want to see that part. They have auditions for everybody now, and if you want to apply for Streets, you really need to have a custom character to show them. But you also have to be able to improv things on the fly.
Yeah.
So I would say design a character, Write a short little bio kind of thing. Know your character inside and out. Practice some characters that are not your character. And you got to learn your body motions. You got to learn your vocalizations. You have to just practice being that monster. Find a little space inside your home where you're not being bothered, maybe in front of a mirror, and then just start acting. Start being the monster. Start thinking like the monster, and then eventually you'll have so much experience doing that when they start throwing the random things at you to try out, you'll be ready to go.
Let's wrap it up. Sammy!
All right. Our next question, and probably one of our last questions here, especially for some of those guests that we don't know all too well, we like to ask, what is your favorite scary movie?
Favorite scary movie?
Or horror movie in general.
Oh.
That's a better word for it.
Yeah.
Or if you can name one, a couple.
Well, okay, so as far as like scary movies go, I really like The Thing.
Oh, dude, you're my man.
So,
John Carpenter, right?
Exactly, John Carpenter's
Yep.
The Thing. So what's awesome about that is it captures the psychological aspect of horror.
Yes.
All right, so if you are a monster, you need to become an expert at what scares people, what scares them on the inside, what their psychology is. And that movie is just a love letter to paranoia.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right? And what is the most scary about that monster isn't so much what can happen to you. You can die, you can get cloned, you can whatever. What's super scary about that monster is that it doesn't have a form. It is just an unknown, mysterious thing. And it can become other things.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main things that you should be going for as a monster is you should be really focusing on the fear of the unknown. When you become a monster, you should be trying to alter as many aspects of yourself that are human as possible. You don't want to stand in a way that humans normally stand. You don't want to be walking in a way that humans normally walk.
Exactly.
You don't want people to see human skin colors. You don't want people to see human eye colors. So every little aspect that you change about yourself is increasing your chances of achieving a scare. So I always, whenever I have a new rookie that I'm teaching how to scare, I always tell them the same thing: focus on fear of the unknown and change as many parts of yourself as you possibly can. So an exercise you can do is just walk around and think, how does this joint in my body normally bend?
Yeah.
How does it normally rest? So you start changing the way that your body might tilt it a little bit, change where your head is. If you're every little aspect that you can think of. If you're at eye level with people normally see other people's eyes on the same level. Take yourself below that. Take yourself above that. So that's the whole fear of the unknown is our primary thing at Scary Farm.
Definitely.
So that's one of the reasons why I like The Thing, is because you just don't know what this thing is, what's it gonna do, and it could do anything, it might do nothing.
On top of that, it's this thing, even though fire was a big weakness for it, it's like an unkillable thing, because in the end of the movie, it gets away again.
You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. And then that was when they did like the remake in 2013, or 2011, which was like.
Oh wait, that was a.
It was a prequel. Prequel, yeah.
But it just I only saw a little bit of that, and I was just like, man, these people are too good looking.
Yeah.
To all be at Antarctica at the same time. It also felt too modern too. I'm like, this is supposed to be in the 80s. Why does it look so? Why does everything look so nice?
Give me back Kurt Russell. Well, I want Kurt Russell back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those. Yeah, the thing is just a terrifying alien creature, whatever this thing is. It's terrifying, and that's and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's actually another thing that going back to like blending in and stuff. It's one of the thing can turn into different people to blend in with its surroundings and then jump out at you, attack you if it really wanted to like that.
Yeah. So another movie that I thought is really good, and a lot of people give it crap, is Signs.
Science is good.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
So I thought that movie was perfect until they showed the monster at the end.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things, is how scary this thing was because you couldn't see it.
Yeah.
You know, it was around, it was running on the rooftops, you could hear it sometimes, but it was like, it was out of view, out of sight. And that was another complaint I'd hear about people with old monster movies too, is the monster would be scary until it would show up at the end and you'd see this dumb costume with a zipper, and it just was a goofy thing, you know. So all the way until the end of the movie, Signs is pretty damn good.
Yeah, pretty good movie.
I mean, the ending's not too bad either, but it was like, if they could just have not shown the monster, I would have been
fine.
I would have said that it was perfect.
Definitely. Well, Wolf, it's been fun. We enjoyed hearing your stories, and we appreciate the hard work that you've put this season into bringing one of the greatest fucking events to life. We had an amazing time at Knott's this season, and we can't wait to go back next year. But it's meeting people like you who give us that, to hear stories, to give us advice as to becoming said monsters, and we are just very grateful and thankful to have met people like you, because it really just gives an insight of how we can either watch our nightmares become a reality, or hopefully one day jump in and become the nightmares, you know what I mean? So we really just appreciate you, and thank you for all the hard work that you've put on this season, and we can't wait to see what you bring next season.
All right.
We're very much looking forward to it. Thank you everyone for watching the Mindless podcast. We are having such an amazing time with all these monsters, and we can't wait to interview. We got a couple more left in the season, and we're getting more excited every time we interview another one. We love hearing the stories. We love seeing how they prepare every night, and just how they've evolved characters throughout the years, or even the season. So stay tuned if you want to see more of that. Follow us on Twitter at Knights of Horror, and on Instagram at The Knights of Horror if you want to keep up as to what we are doing. And we have a Patreon, so if you guys are feeling extra generous, go ahead and select one of the tiers from anywhere from $1 to $20. We would be very grateful. But if not, just subscribing, liking, and commenting on our videos is just more than enough for us. So we really appreciate all the support, and we thank another monster onto the Character Appreciation Month, and we will see you guys next time.
Peace.